And we're back to the Constitution line by line. We're now into the 20th Amendment. I'm Don Frazier. This is Paul Fabrizio. I teach history. He teaches political science. And if you've been keeping up with this particular
journey,
you know that we're hurtling towards the end of the Constitution. But also these amendments have been clustered into several sort of eras, if you will.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
It is. And so you have some that are immediately after the Constitution in order to get the Constitution ratified. Then you have, a little bit of bookkeeping and housekeeping that occurs. Then you have the Civil War amendments.
Yep.
Then you have the Progressive Era amendments. And now after the 19th Amendment giving women and all genders the right to vote, we're now heading into the Depression era amendments.
So 1920 brought the end. There were 4 amendments that were approved in a span of 6 or 7 years. And so 1920 brought the end of that. And what was it? The 20s were the era of good feeling or whatever?
Well, it was the Roaring 20s.
Roaring 20s.
Yeah, the era of good feelings is the 1820s.
Oh, sorry.
So you missed it by 100 years. But yeah, it's the Roaring 20s where you had flappers and Model Ts and cinema and all sorts of unseemly things going on.
Yes, and no alcohol.
Yeah, man, there's zero alcohol.
Yeah.
Wasn't anybody drinking because it was banned.
It was roaring without alcohol.
But the party comes to an end in 1929.
Comes to a roaring
It
end.
comes to a roaring end, and we enter into an episode known as the Great Depression.
Right, and so that brought a reassessment of basic American values.
Correct.
And so people took a look at it and said, is there things that we want to change in terms of how it's going? And in the end, there was only 2 amendments that came out of this era.
And both kind of mechanism amendments.
Exactly. So let's get into the first one, Amendment 20.
But we're going to break 20 into 2 parts.
We're going to break 20 into 2 parts.
Okay.
So we're going to take Section 1 and Section 2 first. So the terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the year in which such terms of their successors shall then begin. Section 2, Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. So that's Section 1 and 2. What was going on was very simple. You got to remember the Constitution was created in a time when transportation was very difficult.
Yeah, 1780s is not a golden era in the United States.
So you had the presidential election in November, but you didn't have the president take over until March.
Correct.
And that was simply to give the president time to get to Washington, D.C.
Close up his affairs at home and open up his affairs in D.C.
Yeah, and it just took time. But we're now in the 1930s, and nobody really was flying
But
yet.
there was rails across the
But there were railways,
continent.
and you could get there in a couple days. So therefore, the sense was there's just too much time here. And so they shortened it. So the election is now in November, and you take office January 20th at noon. And today, when we look at it in terms of presidential politics and governance, what we deal with is the fact that is so short a period of time.
Yeah.
And
the transition period
the
is
transitions
tough.
time is incredibly tough. So you need to understand that a president, when they come into office, has to appoint 4,000 people. There's 4,000 vacancies heading the various agencies, and the president goes, I don't know 4,000 people.
Yeah.
So you need time to prepare it. And it turns out that the way it works today is that presidents assemble transition teams, presidential candidates assemble transition teams after they get the nomination from their party. And
on the 50-50 chance they're going to win.
Well, sometimes not a 50-50.
Yeah, not even 50-50.
Yeah, on the
off chance they're going to
win. So they start assembling all that work. And, Donald Trump had all that work done. Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey was head of his transition team. But then once President Trump was elected president in November, 3 days later, he fired Christie. He got rid of all that effort and had to start all over again. And some of the chaos that has taken place in the Trump administration is directly attributable to the fact that they did not have people in place.
Why did he do that?
That has never been resolved in any sort of satisfaction.
Huh.
To
anybody's
one day, history, you guys will come up with an answer to that.
It's at least 20 years into the future.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at it from a governing perspective, the job of the president is to be chief executive. You need people to do it. Yeah, there's very short transition time, and then the president made it worse by firing all the people who've been doing it and making it much shorter and giving yourselves 11 weeks or something like that.
Yeah,
it's really tough to get stuff done in that short period of time. So, but anyway, that's the first thing. And the other thing is that Congress starts on January 3rd. The whole point is that Congress must meet every year, and they need to be in place before the new president is in place. And why is that? They count the Electoral College votes.
Yeah.
They've got to be there to make sure that they can officially certify the election.
Yeah.
Okay? So, short, simple,
Swimple.
and it's a reflection of simply transportation.
Yeah, it's just the modern era.
Yeah, the modern era.
But it's funny, now that government has grown so large, we may have to go back to March 20th.
Yeah, it's tough now for it to all get done. But at the same time, any president will tell you that once their successor has been elected, they lose power.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have
the
institutional power.
Duck.
That's the lame duck. They are a true lame duck. And while they still want to do things and they still have pardon power and they can still propose legislation, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody wants to pay attention to the new person. So,
okay,
there we go.
A little bit of a housekeeping amendment in a new era, the Depression era. All right, we'll pick up the next amendment, 21st Amendment.
Nope.
No. Oh, the second part of this.
We're going to
That's right, 20th Amendment,
part.
second part in the next episode.